like you have that language like we should motivate people. You can't motivate people because motives are inside a person. You can try to tap into their motives. You can pressure people and push people and make people do things, but that's not motivating them. Imagine yourself at the top of the mountain. If you visualize it, it will happen. Unfortunately, research shows that that's really not the case. There's some brain research that shows when you visualize yourself at the end point, it's like your brain is feeling like it doesn't put energy into getting there because you feel like you're already there. And so it doesn't give you the oomph to do the things you need to do to get there.
안녕하세요. 전 세계 화제의 책과 저자를 깊이 있게 들여다보는 시간 스텔라의 북인사이트 스텔라입니다. 새해 계획, 다이어트, 영어 공부 매번 큰맘 먹고 독하기 시작했는데 정작 며칠 먹가 지치고 포기한 적 많으시죠? 공부한다면서 책상 앞에 앉아만 있는 자녀를 보는 부모님들, 딱 시킨 일만 간신히 끝내는 팀원들을 보면서 한숨 쉬는 팀장님들도 고민이 많으실 것 같고요. 우리는 이럴 때 흔히 게을러서, 의지가 약해서라고 말을 합니다. 그런데 진짜 의지가 문제일까요? 그래서 오늘은 우리가 가진 의지력의 한계를 탓하기 전에 우리가 꼭 알아야 할 동기부여의 과학을 가져왔습니다. 교육심리와 발달심리학을 오래 연구해 오신 웬디 그롤닉 박사님과 함께 사람을 움직이는 진짜 힘에 대해서 이야기 나눠보겠습니다.
Welcome to 북인사이트. I'm your host, Sala. If you ever started with the best intentions only to quickly lose steam, today's guest has a scientific answers. Joining us today is Dr. Wendy Grolnick, a professor of psychology at Clark University and a world-renowned expert on motivation. She is the lead author of a brilliant collaborative book by 3 top experts known in Korea as 끝까지 해내는 마음은 어떻게 탄생하는가. Hi, Wendy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just wonderful to get a chance to speak to an audience in Korea.
So rather than viewing motivation as a fixed internal trait, your work highlights how it continuously develops through interpersonal contexts like relationships with parents, teachers, and later in life like managers and peers.
It's actually one of our myths that motivation is something that exists within a person, that's a static thing, like some people are motivated, other people are not motivated. And our theory is very, like you said, very contextual. We're all motivated. We all have needs. We all are motivated to become more autonomous, to be more competent, to be more connected to other people. These are natural needs that we have, motives that lead to motives. And we're all motivated. It's just a question of for what and how context that we're in fuel that motivation or thwart that motivation, and what we can do for ourselves to defeat that and defeat those things that thwart us, and what we can do with other people to really tune into people's motives rather than trying to push them along, which is not facilitating motivation. That's coercion. So that's the sweet spot there to think about it as something that depends upon the content and the context that you're in.
Right. That's why I like your book so much. So I wanted to ask you more about that part. Since your book is titled Motivation Mythbusters in English, I'd love to start by demystifying motivation itself. We all strive to stay motivated, yet the concept can feel quite, how can I say, elusive, right? What does it actually mean to be motivated? Interestingly, the Korean edition translates the word motivation from your title into 끝까지 해내는 마음, which means the mindset to achieve until the very end. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. That's really, I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, motivation is an internal quality. So when we're motivated, we are experiencing that oomph, that want to, that push. And it's the interesting thing about it was mindset, which seems like a little bit of a cognitive concept. And it is cognitive. It's the thinking behind it, but it's also the feeling behind it. So motivation is about emotion and thought and action. And so, yes, we need the mindset, but we also need that energy. And that energy to do things comes from the needs that we have. Or you could say the like internal propensity to keep going once you get started, or something like that, because it's emotional too and cognitive.
Since you mentioned energy, I can feel your energy, but on a personal note, Wendy, looking through the lens of your own research, do you consider yourself a highly motivated person? I can feel the energy.
Well, that's such an interesting question, because I have been so fortunate to be able to study something that I'm so passionate about. Like for work to me is kind of play, because I'm so interested in that. And so when I'm in that space, I have a lot of energy, and it comes from me, and nobody has to push me or tell me to do it. And I keep going, and the time goes. And, Csikszentmihalyi talked about this idea of flow. It keeps going. But there's certainly many, many things and many, many times where I very stuck and hard to get myself going, and have had all of the experiences that we talk about in this book of feeling unmotivated, feeling like I couldn't persist, feeling like I can't do this. So I wouldn't say I'm a motivated person, because we're all motivated.
It is clearly not a simple, like one-dimensional concept of motivation. Motivation is like a dynamic process, not a fixed identity. And that leads us perfectly into the first major myth you tackle. There is a widespread belief that some people are just naturally motivated, while others simply aren't. When we see a student sitting like blankly at their desk, or an employee starting aimlessly at their screen, we easily assume that they're just lack drive. They're just lazy, right? And scientifically speaking, is it accurate to divide people into this binary? And why is this trap so dangerous?
Yeah. I think it's a natural thing. There's a social psychological phenomenon called the fundamental attribution error, where when we're doing something and we're not very motivated and lackadaisical, we say, we look outside ourselves and we say, it's because the teacher's boring, or the material's not interesting, or people are, watching me, or whatever. But when we see other people, our natural tendency is to make a person attribution, to say that person isn't doing something. They're just sitting there because they're not a motivated person. And so it's a natural thing to do, but it's really, really problematic, because when we see someone as unmotivated, we'll either kind of give up on them and it's like, that's just an unmotivated student, or we'll start to push them and say, okay, they don't have motivation, we're going to really push. And of course, pushing and pressuring and rewarding and threatening and bribing really undermines intrinsic motivation. And so it's going to backfire. So when we see someone that's unmotivated, rather than saying that's an unmotivated person, if they're not looking motivated, one of these needs is not being fulfilled. They're either feeling incompetent, I can't do this, and so I'm going to give up, or they're feeling pushed and controlled and pushing back, or they're feeling like nobody is really respecting and caring about them, and so they're going to just step out emotionally. And so if you start to think about it that way, then you say, okay, what need might be frustrated, and how can I set up an environment to tap into those natural motives that everyone has, and create a situation where people are motivated? Because we don't motivate people. It's like you have that language like, we should motivate people. You can't motivate people, because motives are inside a person. You can try to tap into their motives. You can pressure people and push people and make people do things, but that's not motivating them. I love your question.
Oh, I like your answer. That completely redefines the baseline of thinking, I think. If motivation is a dynamic process, then relying on sudden bursts of passion should be a trap. I think it directly challenges wanted bad enough culture we see in the self-help industry and startup ecosystem. We've all seen people sprint at the starting line only to crash at the first major roadblock. When we look at the behavioral literature, why does this motivational low mindset often fail during setbacks?
Yeah, I mean, there are different issues in motivation. One is that we don't feel motivated. We don't want to do something. And so the question is, why? Is it because of the environment or because this activity doesn't have any meaning to us, personal meaning to us. And then there's the other set of problems that we might have, which is we're very motivated. We want to do it, but then we find that we just aren't following through. And so that's kind of one of our other myths, which is that motivation is enough for success. It's great to be motivated. It's great to really want something, but any complex activity has multiple parts that aren't fun, that are tedious, and you're really motivated to do well in school, but the everyday things that you have to do that are hard. And so we need good strategies to get ourselves, along with those things to help us stay the course.
So what kind of self-regulation strategies do we actually need then?
So the kinds of things that we can do are things like goal setting. So if you don't, if you're having trouble getting started, or if you get started and you get stuck, you want to set goals. What we find in all of the literature is that when people have particular goals, when they're difficult goals and very specific goals, realistic goals, they're going to persist longer at what they do. So for example, if you just say, I'm going to do some sit-ups, and you might do 10 sit-ups and feel happy. But if you say, I'm going to do 20 sit-ups, you're going to do 20 sit-ups because the goal sort of gives you that energy to persist till you just get to the end. So goal setting is a really important strategy that you can use when you're motivated, but you're having trouble getting started or having trouble persisting.
Let's see. In the book, you also mentioned there are good types of goals, right? What are they?
Yeah, we differentiate between, and actually this is Carol Dweck's work from years ago, differentiating between mastery goals and performance goals. And mastery goals are to learn something, to grow, to develop, go a little farther than we went before. Whereas performance goals are more like trying to beat someone out or trying to look good for other people, things like that. And when we have these mastery goals, we don't feel the pressure. We're happy when we meet them, but we're not putting so much pressure on ourselves. When we have these performance goals to better other people or to look good, it feels like a lot of pressure. And that really may undermine the experience, the intrinsic motivation that you have. So trying to think about learning and growing and getting better rather than trying to best other people and things like that are going to be more productive goals. And we can set up environments for other people where they're more likely to set mastery goals for themselves versus performance goals. So in a workplace or a classroom where there's competition, where people don't tolerate failure and don't see failure as just a growth thing, a way to learn. When you have an atmosphere like that, people are more likely to set performance goals. Whereas you had an atmosphere where mistakes are our friend. We all make mistakes. We share our mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. That's how we grow. Then people are going to be more likely to set these mastery goals.
The AI is much better than us to achieve these performance goals. And maybe the importance of performance goals decrease as AI progress, but the mastery goals became more important.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the pros and cons of AI. I guess it has potential to have us doing more creative things in a way and not doing the sort of mundane sort of things.
I think it also connects to a different topic. On one hand, we have The Secret, which tells us to just vividly imagine success, and the other, Grit, which commands us to push through with willpower. Personally, I didn't even know they were myths until I read this book. And in this book, you suggest that scientifically, this pure fantasy is just as toxic as forced blind perseverance. And why is that?
It's very prevalent in the US, where self-help books say, just imagine yourself at the finish line. Imagine yourself at the top of the mountain. If you visualize it, it will happen. Unfortunately, research shows that that's really not the case. There's some brain research that shows when you visualize yourself at the end point, it's like your brain is feeling like it doesn't put energy into getting there because you feel like you're already there. And so it doesn't give you the oomph to do the things you need to do to get there. So you're much better, instead of imagining the end point, imagining all the steps that you need to take in a very specific way to get you to where you want to be. And there's this set of research on implementation intentions, which are these if-then statements that help you to make these steps. So for example, you say, if it's Tuesday and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, I go to the gym. So making these implementation intentions and imagining yourself doing them, imagining yourself getting up in the morning, imagining yourself putting your sneakers on and getting out of the house, or imagining yourself taking that run at 5 o'clock in the morning to practice, lead to the behaviors that you need to ultimately reach your goal.
So you mean that the visualizing itself is not bad, but visualizing you at the top of the mountain is not good, but think about how you can overcoming all the obstacles in the process, right?
Exactly. Yes, you bring up an important point of that. Not only do you want to visualize yourself doing the step, you want to also anticipate that you're not going to feel like doing it and plan for that.
It's like a playbook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Another interesting point for me is that act first. Don't wait for the moment. Don't wait for the motivation come to you. Just act first. So many viewers watch motivational videos on YouTube these days when they're in slump, waiting for the right mood or inspiration to strike, only to fall back into helplessness. But scientifically, why does consuming this content become a toxic psychological trap?
Yeah. When we're feeling unmotivated, waiting for motivation to strike is a trap, like you said, because it may never strike. There's some research that shows that people actually anticipate that something will be much harder, more difficult, or more painful than it actually is. If I say to you, how bad would it be if you went upstairs and cleaned your attic? And you'd be like, oh, it'd be awful. It would take me forever. And it turns out that you go up to do the attic, it's actually kind of interesting. It's not that bad. So we anticipate that things are going to be worse than they are, and that holds us back from starting things. So recognizing that. And then what we find is that when people so we suggest to people, if it feels overwhelming, don't tackle the hard part. Just do something. Just do anything, small thing. And then it will give you a little bit of positive feedback. And then it may spark your motivation a little bit more.
I related to that point. I also like your advice that remind yourself that you did something similar before, like even if that's small. I really like that part too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So something like if you are about to write a book, that's a very big goal. But if you remember that you wrote an essays before, then you can, revive your motivation.
Right. And what are the kinds of things I did to make that happen? From a theory that my work comes from, self-determination theory. The first step when we set our goals is to really consider why you want to do something. So motivation is the energy, but it's also the direction. Which direction do I go? And we want to consider the why. Am I doing this thing because someone is pressuring me to? Am I doing this thing because I'm pressuring myself? Like, this is something I really want to do. And when we pressure ourselves, we say things to ourselves like, I really should clean that attic. I really should write that book, whatever, versus things that we really are behind, that this is something I want to do. This is something maybe hard. It may not be fun, but it's something I really want to do. It has some meaning to me. And they don't feel really autonomous or choiceful about doing it. It's unlikely to persist when we're not we're not feeling behind it. So for example, you set a New Year's resolution to say, I'm going to eat more healthy, or I'm going to exercise more, or whatever it is. And then if you're doing that because you really believe in that it's important to be healthy and to feel good in your body and so forth, that you're going to be much more successful than I really should, because I have to look better, and people are going to look at me, and that kind of thing, because the energy is coming from your own need to feel autonomous, to do things that you feel choiceful about versus pressured to do.
Why can be the real power that lead us to the goal, right?
Yes.
I see. Interesting. If my understanding is correct, that you emphasize the autonomy is important, or tapping on intrinsic motivation, but you've noted that structure is not the opposite of chaos, not autonomy. What does that mean?
According to self-determination theory, we have needs for competence, for autonomy, and for connectedness or relatedness. So in order to feel competent in your workplace, or in your home, or in school, you need to know what the expectations are for you, how to succeed, how to avoid failure, and those things, the guidelines and the rules and the expectations and the knowledge that you need to be successful are all what we think about as structure. And we all need that to feel competent. So having a workplace that has that structure in it is really important, because if you went in and you're like, well, I don't exactly know what they want from me, and I'm going to have an evaluation, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do to get a good evaluation, versus really very clearly outlining what the parameters are. And so that's not undermining of motivation, having that structure. We all need it. We all want it. It's just when that structure is put upon us in a way that feels really controlling and pushy and pressuring. It comes with, you should, and you have to, and we're not interested in what you think about it. Then you might feel competent. Okay, I know how to do it, but I don't really want to do it because I feel so pressured and pushed. Versus the kind of structure where, let's put together, we want to hear your input about these expectations. I think the most successful companies have this structure so that people know what to do and what's expected, but also have opportunities for employee input and feedback and rationales for why the structures are in place. The opposite of structure is chaos, feeling competent, feeling incompetent. The opposite of autonomy support is control. And you can definitely have structure with autonomy support, or structure with controllingness. And so they're two separate dimensions, which I think people get confused. If it's really structured, it's going to feel controlling, but not necessarily.
I see. This balance between like high structure and high autonomy isn't just a corporate challenge. It's the exact tightrope parents and educators walk every day, I think. And a lot of parents are probably watching this. If we slightly change the context, then what would be a good structure for parenting?
It's a really hard thing to do. What you want to do is to engage someone in a conversation about this, and engage them in with empathy and autonomy support. The crux of autonomy support is taking people's perspective and understanding where they're coming from. So in that context, and then giving them choices and problem solving together, versus you have to, you should, you're not leaving until you do this. But no, but it's hard, working with an employee in that way too. It takes time to empathize with someone, understand where they're coming from, and problem solve together versus solve the problem for them. So you have to have the time and the emotional energy too.
So we have to give them like high autonomy in a well-structured way.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving to our last question, this is my signature question for the show. In the next 10 years, what do you think will change the most about human motivation? And conversely, what aspects of human motivation do you believe will stay the same?
From my theoretical perspective, people will always have a need to feel autonomous or choiceful about what they do. People always will feel like they need to be competent. They'll always feel wanting to be connected. And so how AI will affect the satisfaction of those needs, I think it's a bit of an unknown. I mean, I think there can be positive things about not doing the less meaningful work and opportunities to do the more meaningful work. On the other hand, we don't want to feel like pawns to pawns to AI, and so I think workplaces are going to really have to think about what human needs are.
So the human needs will not change even if the technical landscape is changing.
The basic human needs, I don't think so. Those are innate psychological needs.
I really like your idea as a whole. Finally, do you have any last message you'd like to share with our Korean audience?
Oh, I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to talk to your audience, hoping that the book will be helpful in negotiating all the challenge that we have these days with motivating ourselves, motivating other people.
Andy, thank you so much for guiding us to revive our deep motivation. It's been a great pleasure having you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
오늘에 대해 어떠셨나요? 이 자기계발 책이나 영상에서 많이 하던 말들이 있잖아요. 그동안의 심리학 연구를 통해서 좀 압축적으로 이 메시지들을 다시 생각해보게 됐던 시간이었는데요. 특히 저는 이 동기부여는 누가 해줄 수 있는 게 아니다. 생각만 하고 기다리지 말고 일단 하면 동기부여가 된다라는 부분이 특히 인상 깊었던 것 같습니다. 여러분은 어떤 부분이 기억에 남으시나요? 끝까지 해내는 마음이 특별한 누군가의 재능이 아니라 우리 모두에게 이미 존재한다는 심리학의 메시지가 오늘 영상을 보신 모든 분들께 위로와 다시 시작할 힘이 되었으면 하는 마음으로 스텔라의 북인사이트, 저희는 다음 시간에도 여러분의 시야를 넓혀줄 좋은 책과 저자로 다시 찾아오겠습니다. 만나보고 싶은 저자나 다뤄보고 싶은 책이 있다면 댓글로 달아주세요. 좋아요, 구독도 잊지 마시고요. 우리 여기서도 자주 오래 봐요.